So we talked a little bit with her about what her emotions in the scene would be, and how do we sort of, time our rhythms to that. And these may be things that don't necessarily come across overtly on film, but in a subtextual level they are there. But it really worked. We were very pleased with it. Sigourney said she thought it was one of the most memorable images from any of the films. So we're happy about that. So all of these things, it's very, very difficult to say, boil it down to what are the one or two things we did to make any of these characters more alive, because it really is many, many things. And it's rare to have an opportunity to, on a film, to be able to explore the full potential of animatronics.
For the beginning of the movie, where it shows her successful cloning process, we had two replicas that were built, one of Ripley as a full-grown woman, and then one as a child of somewhere around 10 years old. And for the child, I had the idea that we should get some child photographs of Sigourney and work that look into it, so that even if psychologically the audience would be able to buy into certain features, because the idea was that the little, the 10-year-old girl would move into a close-up, and then there would be a computer morph to the adult Ripley. So I thought, boy, that'd be a great, interesting thing, just in terms of the physical growth of a person, to see elements of a childhood Sigourney Weaver grow into an adult. So we had a lot of photographs that Sigourney sent us, and then we had casting find us a little girl who was somewhat close, and we did body and head impression, and then we resculpted it. We took a copy of Sigourney's head that we had done from Alien 3, and again, resculpted the model's body, put Sigourney's head on top of it, and then finished it all off in a material that made it look like real human skin.
It's great, this being the fourth film, we had molds of Sigourney's head, and we did clay presses into that, and we didn't have to put her through any more body casting. Got a body double in, cast her body, grafted the head on, did the resculpting we needed, and then produced the body replicas in silicone, which were then airbrushed and detailed so that they look very realistic. And then in the computer, they did the morph between the two. And it was really almost such a gradual and subtle morph that you almost don't notice it until it's done, and then you realize what's happened. But it was really a very beautiful and subtle effect. And there's a number of those sort of small-scale effects in the film that we're very proud of.
When we did all of the aborted Ripley clones, we had a lot of freedom in determining what the stages would be of each one, and it was never meant to show a progression. There was never any relationship from one to the next, except that we did decide that it would be nice to show that with each successive attempt, that the results got further grown, larger in size.
So the idea was, in discussing with this with Jean-Pierre, was that it was very important for us to feel the pathos for these clone characters. We needed to see that they were in pain, so that you felt that what the scientists were doing was clearly wrong.
You see, the reason that I'm impressed with Alex's work is sometimes he even puts his personal touch on it. He leaves his gum on whatever he's working on as a sort of signature thing. You see how the gum is sort of starting to turn black there, and he gives a sort of strange je ne sais quoi effect to the whole thing, which I think is amazing. He's just great.
What's je ne sais quoi?
And then I think the number 7 clone was the most elaborate of them, because it did involve a makeup on Sigourney.
When we did number 7, it was strictly to come up with something that was so visceral and so horrific that Ripley would be totally justified in ending its life.
That was a fun character to do. Again, because it was a character. It wasn't just simply a gag, but it was emotionally charged. I think it's my favorite scene in the film, where she confronts herself but it was Sigourney coming up through a slant board. She was on a slant board, and her head was coming up through a hole in the table, and we blended a silicone body onto her that was mechanized, and it had it was able to breathe. It had a sort of this distended, jiggly stomach.
And then bring it.
I just grab it in the most practical way. I don't know what that is.
We had to make it so clear in such a short moment of time on screen that this thing should not be alive, that it shouldn't have to live another moment, so that Ripley, you know, killing it, she's giving it a better ending by killing it than to let it live and just stay alive.
Jean-Pierre had definite ideas about what the newborn should look like. He felt that it should lean a little more towards the human than towards the alien. At one point, there was a concept that it would have Sigourney's face, which is a very difficult thing to do because you're talking about you know, a sort of a blending a horrific monster face with a beautiful woman's face. You either slide the beautiful woman towards the monster and it's no longer a beautiful woman, or you slide the monster towards the, you know, and it's no longer a monster, you know. So and also we were very concerned that it not look like Syl in Species, because it had just been done, you know, so why go there? But I think what Jean-Pierre really wanted was to give it a little bit, edge it more towards the human. He wanted it to definitely have eyes because he wanted the expressiveness of the eyes, and he wanted it to be sympathetic, so that really guided much of the design of the newborn.
We had very nice sketches from Chris Cunningham, but it was impossible to build because the legs were so thin. You know, it was impossible because after you have to build the machine, and at the end it was. Now I am a little bit disappointed about the newborn because we did some choices, because also he had to act, he had to play, he had to move and to give us some different expression.
We're doing sketches of other alien type creatures. Just in developing the look of the warrior, there were some loose sketches, and one day Jean-Pierre came by and he saw a sketch that Chris Halls had done of an alien creature, and he looked and he said, "Oh, this is it. This could be the newborn." So then we spent a lot of time trying to capture the essence of what Janae saw in this drawing and transcribing them into some kind of a sculpted form.
I know some people don't like the noise and the feeling because he looks so sad, but if he couldn't, what I can do with him, you know, we had to tell a story, and he wasn't in CGI, he was just a puppet. And I was very happy because he was able to act, and Sigourney too, because we made some scene like an actor and an actress, and you know, we needed some expression for that.
Got it. Back to one.
The newborn is certainly one of the most complex animatronics ever built. It required about 9 puppeteers to operate. It was a hydraulic system that actuated it with a servo-controlled face. Motion control systems, computers were used to aid in the performance. But above all, the great thing about this is that it's a character. I think that one of the things that Jean-Pierre was going for in this film, which we were thrilled about, is that he wanted the newborn not to just be a killing machine. He wanted it to have a little bit more depth of character than that. And where this depth of character comes from is the human DNA that has been mixed in with this creature. So it has some human aspects to it in terms of certainly its look, but also its performance. And in discussing the character with Jean-Pierre and Sigourney, Tom and I kind of arrived at the place where this character would seem like a toddler, in effect, like a human toddler, a horrible version, but that's the way he would be performing. When he first comes out of the birthing sac from the Queen, he looks around his world in wonder and cries out for his mother. But when he gets to his mother, he looks at her and swipes her face off, you know, kills her.
And there's a sudden different kind of awareness to it when you first see it, it looks very alien-like, but as it's looking at you, you suddenly realize it's got a whole new dimension to it, something that you haven't seen, and it almost, in many ways, it's what people say makes the alien even scarier, because now it has eyes. Now you can tell when it's aware that you're a potential victim.
The genitals of the newborn was a whole issue. Jean-Pierre was very much adamant that it should have genitals, and that the genitals should look like a cross between male and female. So we came up with something that accomplished that, and you know, looked appropriately disgusting. And but at one point he came back to us. The studio was always very uncomfortable with it, and he was sort of, you know, holding them off a little bit. At one point he came back to us and said that he had to actually do digital genital removal, because he said even for a Frenchman it was too much. So we said, okay, you know, it would have been great if we could have, you know, made a little appliance to cover it and get us out of that. But I didn't even ask how much they spent, you know, removing the genitals.